Alright lads, so today we are finally updating our tier list for Bleach Brave Souls, this time for the month of December. This one's long overdue. We didn't actually do it last month, mainly for the fact that we did get the new introduction of a new difficulty, the very hard guild quests. With that, it kind of added significant more value on certain characters, pushed one character that no one really talked about into now SS tier. We'll talk about them in a minute, but at the same time, it also kind of made some characters hold significantly less value. Alongside that, with our previous tier list, we were putting a lot of new characters straight into S tier, high S, and sometimes even SS tier, and I feel like some of those tiers were getting a bit too crowded, especially given the fact that there were some characters that have been in that S tier, or the higher tiers for the most part, for quite some time, and I don't feel like it really reflects the current state of the game. So with that, we've gone ahead and revamped our tier list, and I do mean it more than ever this time around. Feel free to leave your feedback. This is more so a work in progress. I had to rank over 500 characters in the game, and I'm gonna overlook some characters. Maybe I'm gonna overvalue some characters. So feel free to leave a comment down below, some constructive feedback. Let me know what you disagree or agree with, and we can potentially reflect that next month for the end of year tier list. In addition to that, I also do want to mention one of the main reasons why this tier list took so long to come out was the fact that we've now updated the graphics. Every character that you do see here now displays their affiliation, their kill effect, their attribute, and also whether they can resurrect or not. Now, I don't really have to explain how long this took to do, considering the fact there are over 500 characters that actually do. Each one took at most a minute. So, yeah, you can kind of assume how long this took to put together. Either way, though, let's jump into the tier list. First up, looking at the heart attribute. Since this is a revamp to a certain extent, we are going to break down every single attribute and not just strictly talk about the new characters, which we usually do. But we are still going to talk about them to a certain extent. So first up, we have the heart tier list. Now, the biggest thing you're going to notice is the rearrangement of the SS tier. Previously, we had 1000 Year Blood War Round 16 Ichigo as the best heart character in the game. And the reason for that is because he was just an overall ultimate all-arounder, right? You could basically use him anywhere. While I did think that Kyoge as an independent character was better, I feel like the fact that Ichigo had a bit more usability, and even to a certain extent Bruno, was the reason why I put Ichigo number 1, Bruno second, and Kyoge number 3 in our previous tier list. Well, since then, obviously, things have changed. Quincy Ichigo, right now, for me at the very least, while I still think he is an amazing character, is basically just a character I use in IT. I don't really like his performance in Guild Quest, I don't really like his performance in Limit Breaker, and keep in mind, he's still a great character in those modes, just compared to the other two, I've been a bit more impressed with these two. Bruno, of course, being really good in Guild Quest, and he shines more so now than ever, given the fact that the very hard difficulty of Guild Quest has significantly more HP. Previously, you wouldn't really ever use Bruno in Guild Quest because you would just single-handedly nuke with Yamamoto. Now that you can't nuke, it adds more value to someone like Bruno, and I've been super happy to have him, which previously, he was kind of just sitting in my box. I understood he was a good character, but I never had to use him. Now I do with the very hard difficulty of Guild Quests. But alongside that, Bruno's just been really good in Limit Breaker, being able to recover your strong attacks with the gauge effect, getting that extra damage output, at least for the 10 seconds when the gauge is active, really helps you push into those high stages of Limit Breaker. And of course, since we are speaking about Limit Breaker, while it's true Kyoge is a character that has less killers, and that's usually how we rank characters being higher, if they have more usability. And to have more usability, if they have 2 killers, it means they're more usable. If they have Sharpshooter and Marauder, it means they're technically more usable in Guild Quest, for example. And even though Kyoge is a character that lacks 2 killers, even though he lacks something like Marauder as a skill, it really doesn't matter. Every time I got to use Kyoge in the last 2 months, he has just kept surprising me. He is without a doubt, in my opinion, the best hard character in the game. He easily could be in contention for the best character in the game, but I feel like there's one character that is just him, but it's a bit better in certain ways. But yeah, Kyoge is an amazing character. His damage output is super high, especially with the kit that he does have in terms of strong attacks, having the best strong attacks in the entire game, SA1, SA2, and SA3. Alongside that, the character easily can stay at full stamina, has an amazing crowd control, and the damage output is just super insane thanks to his Frenzy +2, SP boost, and of course also Rampage skill. And it's with those skills that you're able to use him basically every month in Limit Breaker as a really good option in the 3rd slot, but also at the same time, he can single-handedly solo the very hard Aranka Guild Quest by himself at 1 out of 5. In a way, he's a character that saves you the need of getting other characters, especially melee Aranka killers, because he himself does the job. So yeah, I definitely feel more happy with Kyoge being number 1, Bruno being 2nd, and then Ichigo being 3rd. Aizen, I still think holds up really well, still really good for both the Storybook and also Captain Guild Quest. Overall, still just a solid character with some really good damage output, good gameplay, and of course, really good survivability. Rangiku is just your farmer. To a certain extent, you could argue to get these farmers down to S tier, because that's really all they do, but you do spend a lot of time farming in this game, and she is a really good farmer. No complaints from them. Moving into S tier, we've limited some characters. In this case, Kirio is the newest character in the game, and she is basically a glorified guild quest bonus character. She has a SA2 boost move, which provides your team with a 43% attack, focus, and defense increase. Alongside that, she also can heal your team by around 20% of your stamina. She does have a human killer, and she does want to be used in the ranged human guild quests. That is a guild quest that does lack a booster like this, and in guild quest content, you do want to have at least one team booster in your team. And Kirio does fit the bill, fits that niche, which I do feel like she's a pretty good character. Although because of her SA2 being a melee attack, she herself is a ranged character. She's not as good as you'd want it to be in that particular quest, I will say. But given the fact that she does have Frenzy +2, can inflict paralysis, does more damage to paralyzed enemies, and has an SP boost when you do inflict a stat ailment, makes it actually hit quite hard. Despite her being a guild quest character, I still feel like she actually is better outside of guild quests compared to the other characters, and it feels weird to put her at the top of S tier, I will say, but considering the other options, I would much rather play with her than the other characters in this particular tier. At least in my opinion. Going down the line, you know, Noelle, Christmas character, we did rank SS tier last time because she was really good in guild quests, but nowadays that's really all I ever use her in. Outside of guild quests, she does play a tad bit outdated for a 2023 character, but she is still a solid character, all things considered. Yoruichi, we did move down from SS tier. Overall, just a good character. Nothing too crazy. You can go without her, but she is good to have. Momo is one of the newest characters that we did put on this tier list. In her case, she's mainly being this high because she's a farmer, but a good one at that too. She mainly wants to be used in epic raid content, she wants to be used in IZ, and in that particular mode, one, she does do a lot of damage thanks to her high berserker value, frenzy +1, and 100% more damage to enemies not afflicted by an ailment. She can farm droplets, she gets +10 links or potions, and also most importantly, she's a really good team support character, being able to heal and also provide barriers for your teammates. And I really do appreciate that, especially in epic raid content, where sometimes the epic raid can get a bit hectic. Having that support while also considering the fact that you're boosting the drops that you do get, I think is really valuable in my opinion. Okiro, a character not many people talk about. He's overall a very solid character, really good for a mid-month, and that's something that we've been seeing a lot over this last like 2 months. Really good mid-month characters. Other than that, we just have some other links or farmers, and then basically the bottom half of S tier is just guild quest night characters. You know, this isn't just a guild quest tier list, but having these like potential 5 characters really do help out your account for beating some of the more difficult and rewarding content in the game. Again, that being guild quests, right? Most of the characters here are team boosters, and night characters as a whole are kind of being ranked differently when compared to SP characters because night characters haven't evolved as much over the last year or two. The tier below that is A tier. These just consist of some good characters. Some characters you might consider to be a tad bit higher, but in my opinion, many with CN, for example, was a character we had in S tier. Same with this particular Zapdo, but the more I play with them, the more annoyed I get with them more so. Zapdo is a super Linksor farmer, but kind of ruins the run when you do actually play with him. He unironically hurts your team more than helps your team. And by that, if you're using someone like Rangiku, the best super Linksor farmer for the heart attribute, you'll notice that since he has a very high chance of inflicting stat ailments, and it's not weakening, it's lacerate and burn, that does more harm to your team because now Rangiku is doing 100% less damage. So I don't like that. One character I do want to highlight, and she's A10 across the board, is Tatsuki. She's a team booster for the human melee guild quest. Really good for that week. She's free. You can easily max transcend her because she has that niche and that value to her. I feel like, yeah, she's a character that everyone should strive to get. Other than that, we just have some other characters. B and C tier are characters that, you know, are still good. Some of them have good strong attacks. It's mostly just their damage output, right? That's one thing I'm definitely looking at with this new revamped tier list is that, you know, you could have some good strong attacks. But if your damage output's low, I'm never really going to use you in epic raids. I'm not going to use you to farm IT. I'm not going to use you in guild quests, limit breaker. I'm just not going to use you. And that basically consists of the characters in B, C, and D tier, right? Now, when it comes to the lower ranks like C and D tier, I'm not really ranking the characters individually. It'd be a waste of my time to do so. They're all kind of just bad, right? You know, whether I say this Nelio is better than this Yoruichi makes no difference. They're both unusable. But this is basically how I stand when it comes to hard characters. But again, if you disagree or agree with any placements in this particular tier list, feel free to let me know. Next up, we have the power tier list. And this one might be a bit controversial, I will say, but I'm open to hear what you'd like to have to say. So first up, again, let's look at SS tier, right? So we still have 8th anniversary Ichigo. He's such a different character compared to any other character in the game. And in my opinion, I'm ranking him differently based on that. Of course, his usability is really high, given the fact that he does have 2 killers, that being Hollow and also no affiliation. He has a Tracking Vortex SA2, which in my opinion, thanks to the very hard guild quest, saw significantly more usage. I mean, the distant AoE into a Tracking Vortex SA2 is already regarded as the best second strong attack in the entire game, if not the best strong attack in the entire game. and has been since the introduction on the 5th anniversary. But the value, even though it was already high on that strong attack, has now gotten better because it's really, really good to have in Guild Quest content, since it does provide unmatched crowd control, really high chance to inflict stat ailment, which potentially can work in your favor if you need to inflict a stat ailment to get a boost to your stats. But the crowd control is really good for keeping your team alive. Ichigo has that. He has complete shared stats immunity, which in my opinion, once more thanks to the very hard guild quest, saw significantly more value, since, you know, sometimes you are going to use characters in your team that does have a good amount of damage output, but unfortunately maybe isn't immune to the stats that you want to be immune to. And with that, being able to share that stats immunity has been really good for team-based game modes, even in Limit Breaker, for example. But Ichigo, of course, the main thing about this character is his unrivaled auto capability. No one can auto in this game as good as Ichigo. And again, we spoke about it multiple times over the last couple of so months since its introduction, but it mainly comes down to the fact that he has poise, he has a high damage output, frenzy +3, very consistent, right? But that means his strong attacks just hit so many more times than any other character, especially when you consider the fact that he does have that tracking vortex with drain and also weakening. I have been single-handedly able to auto any IT I go against, even right now where he does have killer, but he can't even heal. But it doesn't matter because he's always inflicting weakening, stopping them from even doing damage to him. And because of this character, because I've been altering inheritance charts, I've been able to link sort all my characters, my technique characters, to T20. That wasn't done by me using any other super links of armor. That was done because I just casually autoed with Ichigo on the side. And that's why I consider him the best character in the power attribute. And you might disagree with that, that's perfectly fair. But he does have the title as the best auto character in the game. No one even comes close to him. And he can do that at only special move level 1 out of 5. I feel like as a new player, this character has more value because he's just super safe to play with. And it's a fun playstyle, I like it, that's why I consider him number 1. Yamamoto, I still feel like is holding up really well actually. Despite him not really having like the craziest high damage output, Frenzy +1 and SP boost is still really good. It's good enough. But you know, we've been getting some crazy damage output characters as of the last couple months. But in Yamamoto's case, of course, when he does inflict a stat ailment, he gets the SP boost, and then he does do more damage to weaken and also burned enemies. As we all know, his soul bomb still hits ridiculously hard. In Guild Quest content, he's still been really good. You would think, given the fact that they nerfed nuking in Guild Quest, it would hurt this character. It doesn't. In the hard and normal difficulty, you can still nuke with him. In the very hard difficulty, he's the best lead for the Quincy and also Hollow Guild Quest week, right? Complete stat immunity. He's immune to every stat ailment which you can share to your team. He has the tracking vortex. He has a high damage output, especially when he does inflict stat ailments. And his soul bomb hits even harder and allows your team to hit even harder. He has good, consistent strong attacks. Really good in IT, really good in Limit Breaker. Still a character I use in a lot of different content, and I'm still happy to have him on my account. It's still someone that I actually do use. And with that, that then leads us into Rukia, which she was a hard character to rank. She has a really high damage output, Frenzy +2, high berserker value. When you inflict a stat ailment, you get an 80% stat boost to your spiritual pressure stat, and you also have rampage. In a way, she is very similar to someone like Killgame, and Killgame is one of the best characters in the game. But alongside that, very similar to Killgame, she does have the recharge your strong attacks for your power characters. Again, meta skill in Limit Breaker basically allows it to be used in any given Limit Breaker month, and she herself does have some good strong attacks, right? And it's with those reasons I was going to put her as the best SS tier character in the power attribute, but I feel like her usability in Guild Quest is a tad bit lacking, and it mainly comes down to that SA2, which we did fight to get fixed, but unfortunately Caleb was stubborn and left it as a melee attack. She is a ranged Aranka killer. You take it into Guild Quest where she doesn't have an immunity, and that's perfectly fine, but her SA2 is a melee attack. It does no damage, and I feel like that's a massive flaw in the character, despite it not being that big a deal, especially if you don't care about Guild Quests. But it is still a flaw that the other two characters in SS tier don't really share, despite her basically having the highest damage output of these 3 characters. And while, to be fair, the SA2 doing no damage is a massive flaw, with a team of 3 characters, it's not that big of a deal. She still actually clears quite fast, and it is a team heal, so she can keep herself at full stamina. But you know, even outside of Guild Quest content, it does hurt her. In the month's Limit Breaker quest that she was designed for, it was range damage ×2, and that SA2 didn't get that damage buff. It's not a big deal, and I still consider one of the best power characters in the game. Again, she is an SS tier, but she does have that flaw, and it's something to keep in mind. And it's because of that flaw that I'm keeping her as the 3rd best power character in the game. But again, you could argue for her to be number 1, number 2, and that's fair, but for me, I'm putting number 3. That then leads us into S tier. So in this case, we moved down some characters, in this case, Nelliel. Nothing's really changed about the character. She has a good, consistent damage output thanks to her increased chance to inflict weakening, good strong attacks, frenzy +2, is a super link farmer, overall just solid character. But again, I only use it to farm IT, and compared to the other super link farmers that we have been getting, she's definitely not as good as some of those, really good super links of farmers, which we are going to talk about later in this video. This Aaroniero has gotten better thanks to the very hard difficulty of Guild Quest. I put him at quite high in S tier now because of that. Kenpachi overall is still just a solid SP character. Soifon, again, usability has been increased here thanks to the very hard Guild Quest. Barrier and also boost is almost unmatched. Ishin, despite being a Brave Battle character, I still think is really good once more for Guild Quest, saw more usage since he is a Nat character. And what I really like about him is that he is a melee sniper killer with Lacerate and does more damage to lacerated enemies. And maybe this is the reason why I'm putting him in S tier, is because he also pairs really well with another good sniper killer, that being White. 8th anniversary White. He has an increased chance to inflict Lacerate. They pair well together, they both do more damage. Overall, solid duo right there. Iban, just a really good character overall. Not super crazy, but still good enough. Don't really have any flaws with him. He's really good for farming links or potions, and of course also droplets. You could argue for him to be an A tier. I wouldn't really complain about that. Same goes for Ruka. Plus 10 links of farmer. Overall, very solid. Momo, plus 5 super links of farmer. Increased chance to fix statism. It's really good in her particular Guild Quest week, that being range, no affiliation. While I don't like her, and I could easily put her in A tier, I think for now I'm going to put her in like near the bottom of S tier. She still does hold that value. And then Aizen, again, another Guild Quest character. Really good for a week where you might not have much usable characters. And I feel like because of that niche, because he's one of the few good Nat characters for the Amelia Sparta Guild Quest, he does deserve the S tier rating. A tier is just some characters that were previously in S tier that we moved down a tad bit, considering the damage output isn't as high as, it used to be or you'd like it to be. Two characters that I'm still a bit indifferent on, very hard to rank in my opinion, is Yumachika. He's a good character. He's a Links farmer. He has a team buff. He can heal your team. He goes through Iron Skin. He has everything you would want a super Links farmer to have, but damn, does this character play like an absolute terrible 2015 character. I don't like using him. Every time I used him on other accounts where I do have him, I'm just not having a fun time. Maybe it's my bias on this character. I really am surprised at how kind of mediocre he was on release. He's someone that I bigged up and then I pulled him and then I was like, he's okay. But I still feel like he has the good value, so I do want to still put him maybe at the top of A tier. Someone like Mayuri was previously S tier. We moved him down. Didn't like how his trap effect worked in Guild Quest. It was still very inconsistent. He has a lot of competition now, mainly with Killgate, for example. Previously, the only reason why I had him ranked high was because he was a Guild Quest nuker. That's all he really offered on your account, and he could nuke at 1 out of 5. But now they killed nuking, I feel like they killed this character. Alongside that, yeah, every other character, again, feel free to let me know. Some characters should get moved up, some should get moved down. One character I guess I want to talk about briefly was 1,000 Year Blood around 14 Rukia. I feel like she's actually held up quite well. I feel like maybe she's even gone to better to a certain extent with the addition of the very hard Guild Quest. You can use it in 2 weeks of Guild Quest. Melee Aranka, while it does have a lot of competition, you can use it there. And also Amelia Sparta, and she was actually really good with a pretty high chance to inflict status augment, especially when you do transform. And given the fact that the increased chance to inflict status augment isn't dependent on a certain affiliation or attribute, was actually really good in that case. So I was actually really impressed with this particular character performance over the last 2 months. But, other than that, I don't really use it that much. You still definitely can. But this is basically the power tier list. Moving on to the mind attribute. In this case, looking at SS tier, again, 8th anniversary White. White's still great, despite him being a nuker for the old difficulty Guild Quest. His storm is still valuable to have, still a great character. And mind is starting to look a tad better, I will say. Previously they were the weakest attribute in the game. Are they still the weakest attribute? I don't think so anymore. They're definitely not the best, but they are getting stronger. 7th anniversary Ichigo. I don't really like his gameplay per se, mainly when it comes to the SA1, but he's still a great character to have, a lot of usability. And in Guild Quest, very similar to Yamamoto, just saw even more usability to a certain extent. When it comes to the Range Sniper and Aranka Guild Quests, there aren't that many great characters to actually use. He's one of the better ones. Really good crowd control, good constant inflicting of status augments. Someone that I feel like every account should have. You might not like his gameplay all too much, but your account definitely does get better if you do have Ichigo on your account. And I'm happy to have him 5 out of 5. Ikaku is one of the newest characters in the game. He is basically a Tenten Zangetsu / swimsuit Rangiku for the mind attribute. And he is, just a solid, really good mind super links of farmer. Compared to the 2 with Balgo and also Ikaku, because there was definitely a lot of, competition, debates going on between these 2. Ikaku can play faster. He cares about killer less. And given the fact that he can go through Iron Skin, has more damage to enemies not afflicted with an element with Frenzy +2, he doesn't care about killer. He doesn't care about inflicting stat ailments. He just goes through and does exactly what you expect him to do. Farm super links or potions and do it fast. Bargo is a character that is significantly more safer. I will say that. He clears slower, but he definitely clears safer. I'm a massive Bargo fan. He's one of my favorite characters of the year, but I feel like when it comes to super links or farming, I would much rather use Ikaku. And I don't even have Ikaku on my account, but I have a 5 out of 5 Bargo, but I would still rather use Ikaku. He clears faster. And at the same time, what really made me moving down to S tier was his Guild Quest performance. I really thought he would have gotten better with the addition of the fact that we have more Guild Quest weeks, range Quincy Killer, for example, range human. Given that he is no longer competing against 1000-Year Blood or Yamato, who is always the better nuker, I thought Bargo would get better, but I wasn't really sold on his performance in Guild Quest. Didn't really like using him in his particular weeks, and that's why in the addition of Ikaku being the better super links of farmer, I did move him down to S tier. Going on to Esnot, one of the best characters in the mind attribute easily. Definitely a character that not a lot of people are giving credit for. Considering the fact that he was a mid-month character, yes, it's Esnot, yes, it's 1000-Year Blood War, yes, he should have been better, he should have been Koge level OP. But that doesn't change the fact that he is a really, really good character. Someone that I've been constantly using over the last almost a month since I pulled him, and I rarely ever use mid-month characters like I have been using with Esno. Obviously, there is a favoritism. I like the character, but even then, like, he's been really good. And if you watched our Guild Quest videos, he soloed Guild Quest by himself at 1 out of 5. Not a lot of characters can do that. You could even argue, honestly, to keep Bargo in SS tier, put Esno in SS tier, and that's perfectly fine. I wouldn't disagree with that, but I feel like I want to leave SS tier a bit more open. I don't want to put every new character in there, but Esno, really, really good. Good damage output thanks to his Frenzy +2. When he inflicts his stat ailment, he gets an 80% SP boost, and his stat ailments are weakening and slow. His SD1 does a lot of damage, and you do more damage to those particular stat ailment inflicted enemies. He's really good. He also has some good protection since its SA2 is a barrier, and that's been definitely an underappreciated part of the character's kit. As not really good character, ranking him just above Nini, who was previously in SS tier, but I moved her down because I haven't used her much outside of Limit Breaker in Guild Quest, you know, when she was first released. I still feel like she's a solid character, but considering the fact they basically made a new Halloween Nini in the Technique attribute and made that character a way better character, you should know who I'm talking about. It's Ichibe. You know, one big flaw that she does have of only having Frenzy +1 when the gauge is inactive really is more noticeable with this character, but in the modes that she wants to be used in, Guild Quest and also Limit Breaker, and even in IT when she has Kill on, she's honestly a very solid character. Moving on from that, Lisa, Okura, and also Mayuri, overall just solid characters. Then we have some good Night characters, especially Guild Quest 1s too. Below that, some other good characters. Don't really have anything to say about them. They're overall just good, maybe just not having the high damage output that you expect to have with some newer characters. Although I guess one character I do want to highlight, who we have at top of B tier, maybe could even put at A tier, is Tag Team Shuei. Honestly, one of the few characters that have gotten significantly better thanks to his resurrection. He did actually pick up 40 +1, kept his bruiser value, and he has 2 killers, Captain, Hollow. He's a ranged character. In Guild Quest, no attack damage characters like him have gotten better. In his particular weeks, there aren't that many other options to use. And considering the fact that he has been out for years, considering the fact that he is resurrectable, a lot of people, veterans, myself included, had this character 5 out of 5. And he performed really well. I never expected to use Tag Team Shuei ever in the last like 4 years, but here we are. He's actually not a bad character. Top of B tier in my opinion. And that's basically the mind to this, right? Alrighty then, so moving into the speed attribute. Man, is speed absolutely stacked. This is by far our most overcrowded SS tier. To be fair, SS tier hasn't really changed all that much, but they did get 2 new additions. So, Yatru, still the best character in the game, really, really good. In a way, thanks to the very hard Guild Quest, got even better, because one of the main things about it in the hard difficulty Guild Quest when she was introduced was that she was the best lead for the Captain Killer Guild Quest. For both melee and also range, you could nuke with her, and then a month later, Bambietta came out and nuked better, and technically for Guild Quest purposes, invalidated Yatru. But thanks to the fact that the very hard difficulty does exist, you now can't use her or Bambietta in the same captain weeks. You have to use them in their respective weeks, melee and also captain. Yatru in that particular sense just got better in my opinion, because now she's no longer competing with Bambietta, who already had the advantage when it comes to nuking with the Soul Bomb. But Yatru's been really good. In terms of clear times for Guild Quests, she right now holds the world record for the highest score possible, and that also mainly comes from the fact that the speed attribute has access to some really good team boosters. With that, let's talk about the character in S tier, Akon. While he is a super links or farmer with the increased chance to inflict stat ailments, he's not a bad farmer by any means. Not the greatest, someone that I wouldn't really use all that much. But he is mainly an S tier because he just makes Yatru, the best character in the game, even better. 20% strong attack damage, with also 40% more damage to enemies not afflicted with an ailment. That just makes Yatsu do insane amounts of damage when she already does insane amounts of damage. Alongside that, you can even use Shinji, another 20% strong attack damage buff with a debuff attack. Considering the fact that you can use Yatsu in the melee Sniper and melee Captain Killer guild quest, you don't need any other character. You just need Yatsu, Akon, and Shinji, and you're getting one of the fastest clearing times possible in guild quests, even though you're basically only using one Captain Killer, that being Yatsu. She's that good. Obviously, we all know she has an amazing playstyle, really good damage output, really good in Limit Breaker, IT Epic Raid. Anyway, take her. She's an amazing character. But in my opinion, she got better, even in the new very hard difficulty of guild quests. Macy's still an amazing character. Again, very similar to other characters, got better since she's now no longer competing with Yamamoto in terms of soul bomb damage. You know, in our previous tiers, I still consider her a better character than Noelle. But at least when it came to guild quest content, you know, Crystal's Noelle was the better character because you could just nuke with her. You couldn't really nuke as well with Macy. But now again, as I said multiple times, nuking doesn't matter. That meant that Noelle's gotten worse, but Macy's even gotten better. She's of course amazing in Limit Breaker quests. You can use her whenever you want to. And still, she is a character that I use constantly in Epic Raid or IT when I'm just having fun with someone like Macy, for example. Aaroniero, again, just overall solid character. Same with Anniversary Oryuu. I don't think they've gotten any worse or any better with the new difficulty of guild quest. Overall, still just solid characters, someone that you definitely will have on your account, potentially even duped out. That then takes us in to Senjumaru. Obviously, best way to describe her, she's a better Tensei than Getsu. You know, Tensei was already the ultimate farmer in the game, especially in the speed attribute, and he's an SST character. But Senjumaru is basically Tensei, but perfected. More damage output, better survivability since she does have complete stats immunity, and she can also farm droplets if you cared about that. But considering the fact that she is just a better farmer, yeah, Senjumaru easily is an SST character. Again, you could argue for her to be better than Okura and also Oryuu, but in my opinion, I don't really ever plan to use it in guild quests. Senjumaru is strictly just going to be a farming character, someone I take into droplet zone, epic raids, and of course also IT. You might consider that to be a better character than these two, and you could definitely say she's the third best speed character. But for me, given her lack of usability in guild quests is what is putting her just below these two. But to be fair, that's not even that big of a deal. She's not really designed for guild quests. She's the ultimate farmer, a better farmer than Tensei, and if you pulled her, congratulations, she's a really good character. One of my favorite characters releases of the year. That then leads us into one of the biggest improvements with the very hard difficulty of guild quest, that being Maid Orihime. A character that I think originally we had in S tier as just an overall solid character, but it wasn't until the very hard difficulty where people, myself included, really started to see how much value she actually does offer onto your account. And that's the reason why I'm putting an SS tier, because you can use her in any week of guild quest, and right now I believe we have upwards to 20 weeks of guild quest, I believe. Maybe even more, maybe less, I'm not entirely too sure, but she's the character that you can put in any team. And that's not an exaggeration. In some cases, she makes some teams work when there's not that many options. And in a way, having Maid Orihime saves you the need of pulling upwards to potentially 20 plus characters, other team boosters that you plan to use in their respective weeks. The reason for that is because she does have a team boost SA2 with the booster skill, so 43% extra attack, focus, and defense increase. Alongside that, SA2 is a barrier with the multi-barrier skill, so a 5-hit barrier for yourself, 3-hit barrier for your teammates, giving them more damage, keeping them protected, staying at full stamina, and alongside that, she does have complete stats immunity, which you can share to your team, so they can then be immune to stat elements, giving them more damage output since you don't have to sacrifice links or bonus abilities to make sure they're immune to stat elements. And then she can also inflict paralysis, which to a certain extent, depending on how you look at it, might be a good or a bad thing. For an optimal run, for us like guild quest speedrunners, her inflicting a stat element kind of ruins the run because you don't want her to inflict stat elements. But for newer players out there that are just trying to beat the quest, her inflicting a stat element basically means that you have extra 7 or so seconds of the boss never doing damage to you because they're paralyzed. Originally, I was going to have it at the top of S tier, but I feel like, yeah, as a guild quest character, one of the more difficult content in the game, she just makes any team better by putting it on it. So easily an amazing character, definitely worthy of SS tier just for guild quest purposes alone. Under that, we have Gin. Gin's a weird one. I'm gonna be honest, he's a good character, increased chance of stat elements, good survivability with his SA2, high damage output considering the fact he has frenzy +2, more damage at full stamina, constantly inflicting weakening. He's just a weird character because, like, I have him and I'm never going to use him. So, like, to me, he's kind of like an A-tier character in that sense, but I still understand he's good. He's just someone that is kind of just there, if that makes sense. Like, you can use him, but there's always going to be better options. but that doesn't still take away the fact that you can use him, and that's why I put him in S tier. After him, we have Toshiro, one of the newest mid-month characters that came out almost 2 months ago at this point. A lot of jump with his release. Luckily, Killer did fix him, making his SA3 a range attack, allows him to do a lot of damage, especially in the Guild Quest wiki is designed for, that being the range Quincy and also stun rated Guild Quest. And right now, that is one of the more difficult weeks of Guild Quest, where there isn't that many good characters, but if you pull him, even at 1 out of 5, you're guaranteed to be it. So that's why I'm considering an S-tier character. He's really valuable, and I definitely do believe anyone's account gets better with him on it, just for the purpose of using him in Guild Quest. But even outside of Guild Quest, he's a really cool and interestingly designed character. Very stationary character though, with the trap effect SA3, which of course has a really good chance to inflict freeze. And with that, you then get your SP boost, you do more damage to frozen enemies, and then you can combine that with your SA2 barrage attack, which again does a lot of damage. You know, Bambietta was a very similar character, but in a way it works better for Toshiro because he can guarantee to inflict stat ailments, keep the enemies in place with the freeze, basically making it guaranteed that you don't get hit. And since enemies have significantly more HP in the Guild Quest, the very hard difficulty Guild Quest, that extra damage output that you get on that SA2, the barrage attack, especially if you let the entire attack go off, just let you do more damage. Overall, really good character. After that, Mila Rose, just a really good pot farmer, gets better with more Mila Rose in your lobby. The more people that have Mila Rose, the better. Jutaro, really good Nads character. Sajin, another good Nads character, maybe a bit ranked too high. We could definitely put him below there. Akon, again, mainly just a support character. And after that, you just have some solid, just good SP characters, right? Good Nad characters. Maybe you could even argue for Rose to be a tad bit lower. Can maybe put him around there, for example. In Sajin's case, though, he's someone that I didn't think would be this good. But, you know, he has guard break. He has 2 killers. High chance to inflict lacerate and also paralysis. Overall, just a good melee Nad character. As far as no-attack damage characters do go, he's definitely one of the better ones in the attribute. So, yeah, I think he's definitely maybe worthy S tier. Again, let me know in the comments below. Below that is A tier. Again, we move some characters down. As the Shiro definitely has fallen from grace since his release. Don't use him that much anymore. Ichigo overall still good, many just being used in epic raids to be a farmer. Other than that, just overall solid characters. Not many characters that I use all that much in A tier. And then again, below that, characters start to get a tad bit worse. And last but not least, we're finally in the technique attribute, which might be one of my more controversial ones. So again, first up, let's talk about S tier. Before we actually talk about the characters, let's talk about the characters that we moved down. Previously, S tier was a bit overcrowded. We had Toshiro, we had Gin, Retsu, and also Bambietta. Not like these characters have gotten any worse. I just think that they're no longer S tier worthy, and it was getting a bit overcrowded. So that's why I decided to move them down, only keeping these 4. Now, Aizen, again, has gotten better thanks to the very hard Guild Quest. Nad characters in general have gotten better. Aizen being the best no-attack damage character in the game just makes him still really, really good. Again, Nad characters are being ranked differently here. They have different usage, different value. And as a no-attack damage character, he is still the best in the game. These 3 we'll talk about in a minute because I know there's a lot of discussion to have with those 3. Bambietta, I just kind of moved down because, I mean, we kind of saw when she first released, she's a good character. Really good damage output. Kit is a bit wonky, to say the least, when it comes to content outside of Guild Quest. She definitely still can be used, but it's definitely a more stationary kit, which doesn't really play the greatest, especially considering the fact that she wants to stay at full stamina with no way to stay at full stamina. You can definitely still argue for her to be an SS tier character, but I feel like right now she's at like the top of S tier. Overall, very good character, but not someone that I use much outside of Guild Quest. When it comes to Gin, he got moved down in the same sense that Bargo and also Neliel got moved down. Really good farmer. Good in Limit Breaker, good in even Guild Quest. But I now have a higher standard when it comes to Linksaw farmers, super Linksaw ones at that. And if you're not to that level, I don't think you deserve to be SS tier. Retsu is a character that I moved down because I don't even use her that much, I'm gonna be honest. Still great, but you know, she's not like super omega OP anymore. Chojo got moved down because he's almost just a solid character, nothing too crazy. Originally was in SS tier for his support abilities, more so for nuking. That's no longer a thing. Still a good support character, but not as valuable as it used to be. But now let's talk about the elephant in the room, the big three. The big 3 for the technique attribute. Now, originally, before Ichibe's introduction, it was these 2, and they were always tied as number 1, Ichigo or Toshiro. Ultimately comes down to who you prefer. Now, since then, I'm definitely more so leaning on the side of Ichigo. I always have, to be fair, but since the very hard difficulty of Guild Quest, I said that a lot of times now, Toshiro's lack of 70% gauge being full at the start of the quest made him a bit weird to play compared to the other gauge characters. Alongside that, Ichigo, again in Guild Quest, didn't impress me that much. Of course, outside of Guild Quest, both Toshiro and also Ichigo are amazing characters, both really good in Limit Breaker, and the same can be said for Ichibe, right? Ichibe having 2 killers, that being Sorba and Quincy, really good combination, I like that. He was a very similar designed character to Nini, as we did mention earlier in this video, but he doesn't have the same problems that Nini has. You know, Nini, when you fill the gauge, you don't recover your strong attacks. With Ichibe, you do. And that allows you to get the gauge almost back right up once the 10 seconds of really high damage output wears off. It's been a common thing to say that Ichibe's damage output isn't consistent or isn't high. It is high. If you played with the character, you know it's high. He clears the same, if not faster, than both Ichigo and also Toshiro. So I don't know how we can say this character is worse because base level he has Frenzy +1, which sure is a bad thing about him. He's not perfect, but when you play with the character, you'll know that it just doesn't really matter. He's constantly looping the gauge effect, and that damage output is really, really good, especially with the strong attacks that he does have. And another thing that I do appreciate about him is his Sobon damage. The bombardment and weakened defense is really good for Guild Quest content, and that's ultimately why I am putting Ichibe above Ichigo and also Toshiro, because, you know, in PvE content, in a way, they're all kind of tied. Choose the one you prefer. In Limit Breaker, I would say it's more so Ichigo being the best of the three because of his team support abilities, but, you know, Ichibe is not that far behind. But when it comes to Guild Quest, Ichibe is probably the best character to use for the melee Sniper and melee Quincy Killer Guild Quests. Sure, you might have X character 5-5 and therefore they're better, but if you're using character the same transcendent investment will and should be insane. I mean, we saw with Nini that she was clearing Guild Quests really fast. So you can only imagine how fast Ichibe is going to clear the same content with a stronger Soul Bomb that allows your team to do more damage, and of course also the fact that you can use them in 2 weeks of Guild Quests, and also because you are recharging your strong attacks when you do activate the gauge, that means your strong attacks come back even faster. But then remember, you know, when you go to a next wave, the gauge timer stops, but your strong attacks are still getting recovered. So yeah, Ichibe is easily, in my opinion, the best technique character in the game. You know, you can't make the case that Ichigo's damage output is any less or worse than Toshiro and also Ichigo's. I played with all three, trust me, it's not. The only thing that Ichigo has over, and even Toshiro to a certain extent, over Ichibe, is better survivability. Ichibe has no heals, he's not immune to every stat element, and that does overall hurt him. And if that's your reason for putting Ichigo or Toshiro as a better character than someone like Ichibe, then by all means go ahead. But for me, I feel like Ichibe offers more on my account than Toshiro, especially Toshiro, but definitely also Ichigo. Moving down the list onto S tier, continue on where we left off. Grimmjow, really good character. Yukio, really good team booster. Really good to have in a week which might be a bit difficult, that being the range Espada Guild Quest. Roka, still one of the more underrated characters in the game. I feel like maybe got a bit better. Tracking Vortex, weakening, high damage output when you do inflict stat elements, can share your stat element immunity to your team. It's mainly because she's another holo killer. There's a lot of competition, but she's overall a good character. Abirama, always been S tier, really, really good. And then Jushiro is a character I recently moved up. I had him in A tier, but I feel like he deserves maybe S tier because the more Sorpers that we get that are good, the better Jushiro becomes, because he's a very similar character to Akon, and Akon is one of the best supports in the game because Yachiru is one of the best character in the game. Remember, Akon gives a 20% strong attack damage buff and also 40% more damage to enemies deflected with a stat element. Well, Jushiro does exactly that for Technique Soripers. And look what we just got last month, a Technique Soripers. So just like Akon and Yachiru being best friends, Ichibe and also Jushiro are now new best friends. And for that support abilities, I feel like, yeah, maybe he does deserve just S tier, just about. But Jushiro is also a valuable character, plus 10 links of armor. Not someone you would traditionally think about using, but good character nonetheless. Moving down to A tier, we did move a lot of characters down. Maybe some controversial picks here in my opinion. Uryu, very similar to Mana Yumachika. I just don't like using him. I don't like his gameplay. You might consider him a really good farmer. I don't. Byakuya is one of the newest characters in the game, and the reason why I'm putting him in A tier, as we showcased him in our video last month, is he has a really big problem with survivability. He's a character designed to stay at full stamina, but he also wants to be a team booster for the immediate no affiliation guild quest. But then in that particular guild quest week, he can't reliably stay at full stamina. Yes, he has start barrier, but that wears off after 20 or so seconds, and by the point you get to the final boss, where he would do most of his damage, assuming the final boss is a speed character, he lost all his damage output, and it doesn't really help out your team. If he was an ad character, he would have been way better in my opinion, and easily an SD character. Although I will say, it's definitely worth mentioning, he's probably an S tier character if you have Gin in your team. Right now, for the immediate no affiliation guild quest, there's only one character with a vortex, and that is Gin. So Gin and also Byakuya are really good together, because Gin will provide the crowd control, and Byakuya will be boosting your team, and should be able to stay at full stamina, assuming you're using your Gin correctly and keeping the enemies in place with the Vortex SA2. I think he can definitely get moved up to S tier in the future. It just really depends on how good melee no affiliation characters get over the next couple of so months. So yeah, overall, Byakuya is A tier for being a guild quest booster while not really being the best at that. Ichigo I moved down because I don't really use that much anymore. For a new player, he's still really good since he has 2 killers, and that's why he was always like really high in S tier. To me, that don't really matter anymore. Oetsu, really good. And A tier basically just consists of just some good characters that have good damage output, good skills, good strong attacks, some attack-based characters, some SP-based characters. And with that, that is basically this month's tier list. Quite the longer one than usual. Again, this time around, we were focusing on the entire attribute in of itself, not just the new characters. But since we did quote-unquote revamp this tier list, I did think this was warranted, especially considering the fact that we did skip over last month's tier list. But next month, moving forward, we are going to update it quicker this time, and we're just going to stick to the newer characters that came out in the game, and maybe make some changes depending on what you'd have to say in this particular video. So hopefully I didn't trigger any of my opinions on these characters. Again, at the end of the day, we're all just ranking, having a bit of fun. I'm open for feedback, so let me know how you like to feel about this tier list in the comments below. I'm overall very curious to see what you like to have to say about my rankings. Right now, to me, the only character that I'm not like really satisfied on is Kiryu. Like, she's a really weird character to rank. Frankly, +2 with the SP boost, but then in Guild Quest, she's not really like the best booster, but she's a weird one. Maybe I'll like put her down here. Like that, for example. I'm not too sure. But let me know what you like to think about the list in the comments below. Hope you like to enjoy the video. If you made it to the end, shout out to you. And I'll see you guys next time. Take care and peace.